Alrighty, well, welcome everybody. Hi, I'm Lynne Golodner. I'm so happy that you're here for this webinar today. This is Building Confidence in Your Writing and Dealing with Self-Doubt. I am a writer, writing coach, marketing expert. I teach a lot through writingworkshops.com where you guys found this webinar. I also offer my own writing programs and I lead writers retreats and things like that. I'm based in Detroit and I am the author of 10 books and hundreds of articles and essays. These days I'm primarily writing novels and creative nonfiction essays. And I can tell you lots about my journey if you'd like. I spent 15 years as a journalist, and then I started a marketing company that I still continue to run, but mostly focus on helping authors build their brands and market their books and things like that. And I have been teaching writing since 1998, and I absolutely love doing it. It's just one of my true passions to help writers bring their words into the world. And so much of that has to do with confidence, believing in your voice, believing that your words are good enough to put out there. And a lot of it is a self-belief game, and we're going to talk about that today. So we have a lot to do, and we have a big crowd. And normally I would say, let's go around and do introductions, but I don't want to waste your time on that, although I do want to know all of you. So what I'd like to ask you to do is to put in the chat where you're from geographically, just so we have a sense of who's here from where. And then I would also love to hear from you if you have a particular aspect of confidence or self-doubt that really plagues you or that you battle or struggle with. Maybe put that in the chat as well so I can make sure that we can cover that. Also, it'll help you to see that you're not the only one. You're in good company. We're all here together and we all experience these feelings as well. So the way this is going to go today is, and I hardly ever do this when I teach, but I do have a PowerPoint and I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through it. And then we are going to have a little bit of writing to questions to figure out where does this doubt come from or confidence or whatever, or lack of confidence. And then we're going to actually do a meditation. So if this is not something you've ever experienced, give me a little bit of leeway, give it a try. Don't duck out of the Zoom at that moment because I think you might find it helpful. And then after we do the guided meditation, you're going to do some free writing. And so I'm hoping to fill all that into 2.5 hours. So I hope that all works. So I'm seeing Rochester, New York, Woodland, California near Sacramento, Long Beach, Ashland, Winthrop, Massachusetts near Boston, Washington, D.C., Detroit in an older suburb. Lori, which one? I want to know. I'm in Huntington Woods. Shannon's in Plymouth, Michigan, not far from me. Park City, Utah, and Dayton, Ohio, Oak Park. Oh, thank you. Great. You're like a mile from me. That's amazing. Los Angeles, Lake Oconee, is that right? In Georgia, by way of Los Angeles. A German living in Michigan. Where in Michigan? Tell me. Portland, Palm Desert, Pittsburgh, Palm Beach Gardens. Really cool. Love that we have such a wide array of people and places and everything. And if you haven't put in what you are struggling with or sort of what brings you to this, why take this webinar? What is it that you're looking to unlock or release? I really want to know. So I'm seeing struggling with doing a major revamp of my novel's main character that would substantially change the story. Yeah, that's hard. That is really a struggle. Thinking of writing a memoir, not sure anyone would want to read it. Why not? We're going to get to the bottom of that. And imposter syndrome. Yep, I hear you, sister. We are in the same boat. Okay, so transitioning from research to actual writing. Yeah, when I was a journalist, it was really easy to write from all the notes I had in the interviews, and it's a lot harder when it comes from your creativity, right? From your imagination. So these are great answers, and if you have more to share, please put it in the chat. I would love to hear from you. So we're going to jump in. As you have questions, if you could use the raise hand mode, which is under reactions at the bottom of the screen, then I'll know that you are looking to ask a question, and we can pop in whenever it is relevant. So that's great. Those of you in Metro Detroit or Southeast Michigan, I am hosting a literary salon on July 7th, if that's something you'd like to attend. give me a shout. And for all of you, I host monthly free ride-alongs, which I would love for you to attend. I will put that link in the chat, and you can sign up for it, and you'll just basically get the reminders every month when the date is coming up. And all that is showing up on Zoom to write in community with others. I provide prompts. You can work on your own project and process, but it's just having that support, which you'll see today is a really important part of building writerly confidence and dealing with self-doubt. Okay, so thank you all for the comments. Keep them in, keep bringing them. I want to hear it as we're going through. But right now I'm going to share my screen and we are going to get started, okay? And let's get this slideshow going. Hopefully you guys can see. Okay, alrighty. So, and I do have subtitles, so hopefully that's not too distracting, but I know that it helps some people to follow along better. So we're going to talk about how you build confidence in your writing and how you deal with self-doubt. And before I jump in, I want to set it up by saying this. I've taught writing for a very long time. What I've come to realize is that most of what I'm teaching is self-belief and confidence that your words matter. And I think I had to learn it too. I think part of it is the more you do it, the more you build that confidence. But there is another part of it that I want us to recognize. And I invite you to think about that as we're together today. Where might this have come from? So a lot of us have other voices in our heads. They could be our parents' voices, our teachers' voices, elders, people in society. And it's a good thing and a bad thing. When we're raised to listen and to follow along. And a lot of what we're taught is so smart and wise. But sometimes it's out of concern or fear or lack of knowledge. So if somebody said to you, it's a nice little hobby to write, or you can't make any money at that, they were probably doing it because they were concerned for your well-being and your long-term success. But when we hear that, we think, I can't pursue this. I can't make this my priority. I can't spend my time on this. So think about what those voices are in your head, whose voices, what are they saying, and is that maybe what has, contributed to a lack of self-confidence, So I think that that's a really important thing to pay attention to. It's very real and we all have it. We've got to name those voices and then we have to thank them for guiding us for so long and then say, I don't need your help anymore. I'm going to replace it with my own voice. And so how do we get there? Well, let's start by looking at things logically. And emotions are not logic, and sometimes we don't have the ability to do that. But there is actually no reason to put pressure on yourself with writing. There's just no reason. Because what does it do? Does it actually make you write better or faster? Or does it freeze you up? A lot of us pressure ourselves to be the best and say the most profound things. And for what end? It actually might have the adverse effect. So I invite you to think about, as we're together today, why you write. Why? Are you doing it because you love working with words? That's why I write. I also write to figure out what I think about things, to process things that happen in my life or in the world, to figure out my beliefs. It's an exploration of self, really. And then what is your goal with your writing? So I write to get published. That is something I have decided to do. I'm a professional writer. I have been my whole career, but I will tell you this. When I was a journalist, obviously I was a writer for hire. Somebody else was telling me the stories to do. I had 8 books come out while I had other careers. And so those were what I called labors of love. And I never expected to make money from them. So I did not make money from them. And I researched and interviewed and wrote, and publishers published me, but I did it, because I was curious and I wanted to put information in the world. And now I write because I am first and foremost a writer. It took me nearly 5 decades to get to that point where I could say, this is who I am and it's what I want to spend my time on. And I have lots of reasons for wanting to write and put words in the world. I think you have to know why you do it and what you're hoping the outcome will be. And that's a really important part of the confidence conversation, because then you can see how you define success. It's not somebody else's definition of success. You don't have to be a bestseller, or you don't have to make millions, or maybe you just write for the fun of it. And then, that changes things. So think about what is beneath that lack of confidence. Is it because you don't think you're good enough? According to whom? In comparison with whom? Um, like what would make you feel successful as a writer? And you might find that there is no reason to pressure yourself and you can just do it for the love of it and see where it takes you. With that in mind, it's really important to make this manageable and attainable. So I write, as I said, creative nonfiction and novels. I don't do them at the same time because it's not possible. So it's really important to have a list of priorities. And I actually, when I have lots of great ideas for books and lots of great ideas for articles, and I just keep them in a document so that I can always go back to it and I don't forget it, but I can't do them all at the same time. So I'm very orderly, organized, and structured in my writing. I write 5 mornings a week for 3 hours at a time. That's because I'm a professional writer. I spend one day a week that I don't do any writing or work at all. And then I have one morning a week where I send my essays out for submission to be published. And I do those in very different spaces so that I can really focus on creating on the writing days and on doing the business of writing on the other days. It's important to be organized in what you're doing and to know what you're aiming for. So if I'm working on a novel, I'm not writing essays. And if I'm writing essays, the novel will come later. And I think when you have manageable chunks of work, you can accomplish it, and that makes you feel good. And confidence comes from feeling good about yourself. Well, if you're a writer and you want to be a published writer, you have to make friends with rejection because it's going to happen. It's just in built into the industry, built into the process. And that's because, and we're going to get to this later, that writing is subjective. So you can write about something and love what you're writing and people can give you positive feedback and you submit it to a bunch of publications and most of them reject you because it's not the right time or they don't like the topic or whatever reason. It's usually not you, but you are going to be rejected. So it can't crush you. So just remember that rejection is going to come and it's not personal. It's not about you. So whenever you are, even if you've spent 10 years writing a book or whatever a length of time and heart and soul, blood, sweat, tears you have put in to your writing, whenever you're sending it out for someone else to accept it and approve it, there are lots of people who won't because it's all subjective. And even if you're writing about heartbreak or the time you fell off a mountain or your struggle with neurodiversity or body image or whatever personal topics we tend to write about, it does feel like they just rejected me. How dare they? I was crying on the page. It's not you. Rejection, it wasn't, that piece was not a fit at that time for that place or person. We move on. So remember, this is not personal. This is your art. It feels like an extension of you, and maybe it is, but the rejection is not about you. The other thing about confidence comes from feeling like you're skilled at what you're doing. And when you write, the more you do it, the more you can get close to confidence. And so you have to put in the time. My mom always says, if it were easy, everyone would do it. And she's talking about entrepreneurship whenever I would call her about my business and say, it was hard or whatever. She'd say, if it was easy, everyone would do it. But it's the same thing with writing. It takes time, and usually your first drafts are terrible or messy or whatever word you want to use. And that's why I always say that revision is 80% of writing. Like you're really spending the majority of your time making it better. Think of yourself like a sculptor. You have this lump of clay and you're molding it and shaping it, but you're going to keep refining it until it's absolutely the perfect shape and texture and everything that you want. And that's what you're doing with your writing too. Just a reminder to put your questions in the chat or raise your hand so I can answer your questions as we go along. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, and as they come up, I definitely want to give you the time to address it. Okay. So now let's think about perspective. A lot of times the reason that we doubt ourselves is because we don't think we're good enough, or we're starting too late, or, I just don't know enough about it. We take every class under the sun. And the thing is that it's really important to take classes. It's important to learn things. It's also just important to do the thing, just to write. And I think we all, even those of us who are writing books for a living, need to be grounded in the facts. So, one of the most common worries that people share with me when they talk about not feeling valid enough to call themselves a writer, or not having confidence as a writer, is because they've never been made any money as a writer. Or they want, Simon and Schuster to pick up their book, and Simon and Schuster is not responding. Um, so yeah, those are great goals, but you know, not most people are not going to make a fortune off their writing. And so I think you need to know these facts. The first thing is that most books never sell more than 500 copies. If you sell more than 500, you are already a success. Frankly, let me rephrase. If you write a book and put it in the world, you're a success. You just did it. If your goal is to sell books and you sell 500, that's pretty amazing. But know that most people never sell more than 500. And so if you're looking to compare yourself with others, which I would not encourage, you have to know that number. You also need to know that most authors don't make a sustainable income from their writing until they have 5 or more books in the world. So unless you're committed to writing book after book after book, it's not reasonable to expect that you're going to make a solid living with like the one book you always wanted to write. You should still write it, but just know what's realistic, what's attainable. I want to mention Colleen Hoover. I hope you guys know who she is. If not, check her out. She's a really down-to-earth woman who started writing just because she wanted to, and she self-published her first book so her mom could read it. And she made like $30 or $40 and could pay the utility bill, so she was really happy. She felt like a success. Well, now 6 of the top 10 bestsellers on the New York Times list are hers. But she wasn't aiming for that. She just wanted her mom to read the book. So keep a perspective about what you really want, and, do it in increments. First book, second book, all of that. I think I see a question. Michaela said, if you write 5 days a week and 80% of writing is revision, what percentage of the time you're writing is generating new content, and what percent is editing or revising something you already have? It's a good question. So when I'm writing a novel, I spend a month mapping it out in what's called beat sheet. That's not my thing. You can find one online. I modify it for my purposes. But I spend a good month in my writing time mapping out the novel I want to write. Then I start to write it. And the first draft, I would say, takes me anywhere from a month to 3 months, writing 5 days a week. And then I print it out and I read it through and I make notes by hand on the draft. And then I go in to revise completely. Usually it needs a lot of work. And so that takes however long it takes, probably a good month to do a solid revision. And then I'm probably going to do it again. I'll read it through and do another round of revisions. And then I'll probably send it out to either my editor or my early readers who I go to. And then I'm probably going to do another revision. So I don't know if that answers it for you, but I think I probably do spend 80% of my writing time on a book revising it. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to follow that up with, Michaela?
No, thank you.
Okay, you got it. Okay. The next thing about building confidence is to remember what you love about writing. So nobody, hopefully, is putting a gun to your head and saying, you must write. So why do you do it? What do you love about it? Like, I'm a real word nerd. I love making beautiful sentences. I love when I read beautiful sentences. So, but I also love when I can write something that's beautiful, that inspires people or makes them think or makes somebody feel less alone. So I love the writing and I love the impact, the connection with other people. I think this is an important question to answer for yourself, because confidence comes from knowing why you're doing something as much as what you're doing and how. And also to remember, we're always becoming better. So if you've had another career at something else, you know this. You know that you started and you made silly mistakes when you were new on the job and then you rose in management or whatever it was, and you got to a point where you really knew what you were talking about and people came to you, but that didn't happen on the first day. So why would it be any different with writing? Think of those parallels. Um, so I would encourage you to, you can take, I'm going to send you guys the recording, but you can also take a screenshot of the slide. But I want to encourage you to think about writing, free writing about what you love about writing. And you could just do a fast list, bullet points, whatever. And it would be a really fun exercise to turn this into something beautiful that you could put on the wall or, near you in your writing space so that when you feel frustrated, when you feel self-doubt, you can look at it and say, that's why I do this. That's right. That's what I love about this. Um, because if you don't love it, why do it? Really, why do it? All right. One great way to build confidence in writing is to surround yourself with people who are going to help you believe that your writing matters and that you've got what it takes. So I mentioned classes. It is good to take classes, but don't fall into the rut of taking too many classes so that you don't actually sit and write. I've seen that happen. So be really selective and space it out, but all the while build your community. So connecting with other writers, maybe there's someone here today that you could connect with in the chat, or there are writing communities. There's the London Writers Salon, if you want to check that out. They have 4 community write-ins a day, Monday through Friday, in different time zones. I think they're free or they're by donation or whatever, but you can meet people there. My ride-alongs are a great free option. There are others too, but I joined the Women's Fiction Writers Association. It's not expensive, and oh my gosh, is it an amazing community of writers who support one another. Like I've met the most generous people. So if you're writing women's fiction, that's a great organization. There's lots of others. There's Romance Writers of America, American Society of Journalists and Authors, I've been a member of for decades. Um, there's, in Michigan, there's Michigan writers, but in every state, in major cities, there are as well. So look around and see how you can find ways to connect with people, either in person or online, who can build you up and you can build them up. Maybe it's getting together in a coffee shop with 2 or 3 other writers locally and writing together, or sharing your pages so you can critique one another. Um, Maybe it's on Zoom and you have accountability check-ins. I offer some programs. We can talk about that. I've been part of a writing workshop here in Michigan once a month for like a decade. So we trade off who's hosting. We have all kinds of yummy things and wine and whatever, but we submit our writing for review and then people give feedback. And it's a really phenomenal group of writers who've become friends. So really build your community of writers and just surround yourself with people who will support you. Because if they believe in you, why shouldn't you believe in you? It's like a self-fulfilling thing. Um, awesome. Okay. At the same time, I mentioned my writing group that I have in Michigan, and I was really selective about who to workshop with. You want people who are at your level or better than you so that you can really grow and evolve in relationship with them. So I wouldn't jump into 3 different critique groups or go to the London Writers Salon every single day. I would be selective so that you can really get the most out of it. You don't want everybody's opinion to change your writing. You want to choose the 1 or 2 or 3 people that you really trust, who understand you and your voice and are going to give you feedback you can use. You don't want people who are like, it's great. That's nice to hear, but that's not going to help you be better. You also don't want people who just slam your writing. So be selective. And at the same time, understand that every writer has their own journey, that your goals are different from the next person's goals. And if they win an award, it doesn't mean your writing's bad. Or if they get a grant to go on a residency or whatever, accepted to a writing retreat, so what? Great for them. What do you want to do? What's attainable for you? You can go out there and get it. It's not, it feels like it's a competitive industry, But books are published every single day, more books every year, and readers are just eating them up. And so there's enough to go around. So competition, it just doesn't matter. It really just doesn't matter. All right. At the same time, because it is so hard to believe in what you're doing and it's so easy to doubt it, celebrate every win. Any little thing that happens, celebrate it. There's something called a good rejection, for example. So when I send out essays, I get tons of rejections. But if they say something like, we really considered this closely and we hope you'll submit again, but we couldn't accept this piece, that's a good rejection. That's a success. It didn't get in, but they didn't just say nope. So celebrate all the good things because you're going to get a lot of rejections. So when you have that acceptance, or when somebody says, wow, this piece moved me to tears, really celebrate it. Really celebrate it. And at the same time, help other writers in that way. Like I believe in, energy and karma. And so, if you're reading books and you're not reviewing them, start doing it. Because the more you send out goodwill into the universe, you read a book you like, let the writer know. Put up a review on Goodreads or Amazon. It comes back to you. Really celebrate successes in writing. Any questions, by the way? I want to make sure to check in with you every so often. You can always put it in the chat. You can raise your hand. Okay, so even when you doubt yourself, even when you're like, why am I even spending my time on this? Just keep going. If you need to stop and, go out and get your favorite frothy coffee or call a friend and say, oh my gosh, my words are terrible. Can you give me a pep talk or take a walk in the woods or, whatever it is. Just keep pushing through it. Think of other times that you've doubted yourself. Did you just give up every single time you felt that? There are so many challenges we face in life. And the only remedy for overcoming it is to keep doing it. The more you write, the better your writing will be, and the more you will write. And I used to fight the notion that you had to write every day to make it a habit and to really get stuff done. And I've given in because I think it's true. Not everybody can write every day, but you could try to have like 3 times a week or 15 minutes a time each day. It will build over time, and what you commit to becomes your reality. So just keep going. And recognize that this is all normal, like even best-selling authors doubt themselves at times, especially when they're working on a new project. They're just like, yeah, all the other books were great, but this one, who's going to read this one? My second novel is coming out in August. It's called Cave of Secrets. And my early readers and my editor just loved it. I mean, it needed a lot of work, but they loved it. And my early readers, they loved my first novel, which came out in 2023. And when they read this, they said, oh my gosh, it's so much better. And despite all that, there was one day when I was working on the marketing of the book and stuff, and I said to my husband, oh my gosh, who is ever going to read this? It's like, is this any good? And he just looked at me like, I mean, it's great. Like he read it and whatever, but it happens. It absolutely happens. Yeah. Okay. And I know this sounds easier than it is, and sometimes it is easier than it is. Sometimes it's not hard to do, but we do tend to dwell in negative things. It is a choice what we focus on. And it can be really freeing to make a different choice than we're used to. I think, and I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know, but I think that humans dwell on the negative because it's like we feel almost like we're jinxing it if we're going to say everything's great, like then the other shoe is going to fall or something like that. But you could say, I am going to believe in myself. I am going to believe in my writing. And it might sound hokey and you might think you're an imposter. But if you keep saying that every day, eventually you will. I was like that with my marketing company. When I started the company, I'm like, who am I to do this? And I doubted everything I said. I mean, I studied and learned and did all the things. And it took a couple of years. But then one day I was like, wait, I actually know what I'm doing. That will happen for you too. That will absolutely happen. Linda, you have a question. Can you tell me more about what it is you want to know? Linda?
I'm sorry, are you talking to Linda?
I am. Yeah.
Yes.
You put a
Well,
question in the chat. What is it that you want to know?
my question was, do you have any ideas? My goal is to write a blog.
Okay.
And so, I'm just wondering if you have any background in that or any
I mean, I
ideas
used to
about
blog.
that.
Yeah, I used to blog daily. But what do you mean, do I have any ideas? Like what to write
Well,
about?
I know
Or
I know what I want to write about, I
okay.
guess, but I have no idea about my goal for this workshop is mostly just getting myself disciplined and doing it.
Sure.
And I suppose I hold back for
Mhm.
all the reasons that you're talking about now, probably.
Well,
Just
here's the thing. I mean, with a blog, I mean, nobody's going to read it until you market it. Like people have to know it's there. So the way that a blog gains traction is by promoting it, by saying, "Hey, read my blog," posting on social media, sending out a newsletter, just like emailing people, "Hey, can you read my blog?" Um, so you could just write it and be like, well, nobody knows about it. So what do I have to lose? And then when you feel like you have a couple under your belt, you could be like, okay, I'm gonna send it out to my nearest and dearest. And then when I feel a little bit more confident about it, when they tell you, oh my God, that's so cool. I'm so glad you shared it with me, you could promote it more and build the audience. So that's the great thing about a blog is that nobody knows it's there until they know it's there.
so you're saying starting with the people that you know.
Yeah, yeah. Because just doing a blog, and I don't want to I mean, I would love to know, and maybe you can put in the chat and I can talk with you later, but like why you want to write a blog. You know, um, what's the purpose? Like what are you hoping to accomplish with it? And just put that in the chat because I don't want to co-opt this time talking about that and maybe I can offer some insight. But if it's about, who am I to do this? The easy thing is nobody's going to know it's there until you tell them it is. So you have nothing to lose. So just do it. And then when you feel a little better about it, because probably you'll like what you write. And then when you see that, oh, well, this is not half bad, you can share it with, a few people that you trust and that you feel will be gentle with you. And then you can share it with more people.
So, but you have to kind of create a blog.
Yeah.
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 But you can put that in the chat and we can talk more about it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing about self-doubt is that when other things are going wrong in your life or other things are not on track, you're going to doubt yourself even more. And so that's why it's really important. I mean, this is like true for anything that you have to take care of yourself on a regular basis so that you can lessen the self-doubt. It may never fully go away, but the more you take care of yourself, the better you will feel about the things you do. And so building in practices that build you up go a long way to diminishing the self-doubt. For me, it's being in nature. It's going to, I love being in a forest or by water. I used to meditate all the time. I would meditate twice a day. I don't really anymore, but that can be really grounding. You know, Maybe it's just having a good glass of wine or, a special coffee or I don't know, putting together a playlist that's going to make you feel happy or lighting a candle in your writing space, whatever it is. I know somebody who used to get fresh flowers, put them on her writing desk for a week, and every week she would buy herself more flowers if she wrote. And just seeing the flowers made her smile. So taking care of yourself really goes a long way to helping chip away at that self-doubt. The other thing with being a writer, and you guys probably all do this, I hope you do, but you should be reading a lot. So ideally read in the genre you want to be published in so that you know what's out there. Um, because lack of confidence comes from lack of knowledge. So if you feel like, I don't know the first thing about writing or getting published or, finding an agent or whatever, the only way that you can build that confidence is by knowing those things. So learning about, like reading other books. Like if you're writing romance, read a ton of romances that are doing well and start to learn how they do what they do. Um, you know, just see what is out there. And the thing that you'll notice is that you will like some things and you will hate some things, which shows you that it's entirely subjective. So when somebody doesn't like your writing, it's not a rejection of you, as I said earlier. So I'm reading a book right now that has won like a ton of book awards. It's a writer who was just lauded as like, oh my gosh, this amazing writer. And I'm having a really hard time getting into this book. I mean, it's clear that tons of people love this writer. So far, I'm not. But that doesn't mean it's a bad book, and it doesn't mean I'm stupid. It just means it's not a fit for me, but it is a fit for a lot of other people. And that's all it is, you guys, is with writing, with any art, with really anything. I mean, listen, cheeseburger. You like it, you don't like it. Is it empirically good or bad? No. It's just a piece of food, right? And you could love it or you could hate it, and it's still just there. It's the same thing. So I don't know if that makes sense, but okay. We've talked about this a little bit, but I do want to spend a little bit more time on it because some people have talked about how, like, I just don't believe that like this work matters. So that's why I said set reasonable goals in the beginning. And as I said earlier, and I want to repeat it because I think it's really important, is to say what you want to have happen with your writing. So like I always say, you know, if one person feels less alone in the world, then I think it was worth it that I put this piece of writing out there. Now, I really want more than one person to be moved by my writing. But I think that's pretty profound if I write something and one person feels like they're not alone. Wow, you know? So think about what you want to happen with this. And at the same time, remember that publishing is a business. So for those of you who are looking to get paid for your writing, or are looking to find an agent or a publishing house for a book, just remember it's all possible for all of you, but the choices that are made are based on whether whoever's doing the choosing feels that they can benefit from making that choice, which means if they have, you know, like an agent only makes money if they sell your book. So if they see your project as something they can sell, that they can make money off of, then they'll take it on. And if they don't, it's not because it's not a worthy project, it's because they don't think they can sell it. I've had people say that to me before and they just weren't the agent for me. So just remember that publishing is an industry, it is a business. There may be competition in it because maybe agents only accept so many clients or publishers only accept only so many books, but you know, it's no longer a stigma to self-publish, and there are hybrid presses as well, which we can talk about. And there are lots of places to be published that don't pay or pay a small amount. There are reasons to take those at times, maybe not always. And so just remember that each of those outlets or those people, they have their own reasons for doing what they do, just like you should have your reasons for doing what you do. And so it's not about competition, it's about what's a fit. And it's funny because my first 8 books were published by publishers. And then when I decided to start writing novels, I thought it would be the same thing. And I decided to start my own press and put my books out that way. And I also publish other people's books. Um, and that was a long decision. And it sort of surprised me because I was raised thinking that self-publishing wasn't legit. But it's changed. And I really did the research. And I have friends who've been published both ways, and they turned to self-publishing because of all the independence they have and the control over the process and the money they make in it. And so you might surprise yourself when you have the information, why you might choose what you want to do. So rather than look at it as competitive, look at it as collaborative and your journey to fulfill your personal goals. Nothing more, nothing less. All right, any questions before we go into this next section? Anybody? Going once, going twice? Okay. So when you're writing, if you can, focus on the act of writing and not on all the other things that get in your head and contribute to lack of confidence. Like, oh, if I write it this way or I include this detail, then no one's going to want to publish it, or this person will be mad at me, or, people will judge me or they'll think less of me or whatever. Write the thing the most honest and true way you can write it. Just because you write something doesn't mean it has to be published. And I've had students say, I'm afraid of putting in specific details because someone in my family is going to get mad at me or I might hurt someone's feelings. And I said, well, you don't have to do anything with whatever you write, but just write it honestly. And then you can decide where it goes. And the reality is that when you write from your heart and soul, it's a much stronger piece of writing and has a much better chance of getting out in the world. But write for the sake of writing and then see where it takes you. You can always make a different decision. I think that is a really important point that if we're writing to become rich and famous, then we're not loving it. It's the goal and not the journey that we're really focusing on. So if you can focus on the writing for the writing and then deal with the other stuff, you might find it silences the voices that are doubting. Okay, now it's time to write a little bit. So these questions are going to be on the screen. And I want to give you guys, I don't know, like let's give you about 8 minutes. And you don't have to answer all of them, but answer whichever ones really speak to you at this moment. You can write by hand or you can write, on your computer, whatever you want to do. But really think about what is holding you back. What are you afraid of that is preventing you from believing in your work or that contributes to your self-doubt? And just see what answers come up. So it's 41 after. I'm gonna give us 9 minutes. We're gonna go until 10:02. So just see what happens when you answer these questions, okay? And I will let you know when it's time to come back. So you have 9 minutes. All righty, why don't we come on back? And does anybody want to share what came up? Um, did you have any surprises? Was it relieving to sort of name the things, the fears? Anybody want to share what you came to, what you discovered?
Apparently I have already decided on some level that I'm writing books because I kept writing books and I'm like, okay, you're having trouble with this first one. So,
Okay. So tell me more about that, Sheila. Were you like you're what you're afraid of is writing books, or you're like, tell me, just talk me more through it.
um, I guess I'd like my books, like, I consider myself not very imaginative,
Mhm.
um, but
Can,
I'm
can I ask a
writing
question about that?
what?
Can I ask a question about that? You said you consider yourself not very imaginative. Did somebody tell you that once?
No, I've always been like a bookkeeper, accountant,
Okay.
it, the cold hard, this is what it is.
Okay.
And so I'm retired and I picked up some poems and stories I'd written
Okay.
and I was like, oh, these are pretty good.
Uh-huh.
So let me try this and see if there's anything left.
Okay. And so what's the problem with not being imaginative? Like, don't you still think you could write an interesting story, even if it's not imaginative?
Well, my first book is about a group of magical people.
Okay.
So I'm kind of like, am I building this fantasy world? Not really correctly, but is it interesting enough considering I don't think I'm not far out there with my imagination.
Okay. So let me ask you some questions. Do you have fun writing this?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you read it, how does it make you feel?
Um, well, whenever I look at it, I'm like, oh, I could say this better, or is there a better way to say it? Is there a better way to do it? So there's a lot of self editing going on.
Okay. Um, have you had anybody read it or any pieces of it?
No.
No. Is there someone in your life who cares about you and would be willing to read it and give you honest feedback?
I think I've got maybe one person who
Okay.
I would have read it, but
Okay.
I consider it my crappy first draft.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm not very far into it because I started writing the book and I thought another character was going to be the main character. And
Okay.
now I'm like, okay, I don't think she is. I think this other character really is the main character.
Okay.
So I'm I'm kind of I'm trying to ride two horses at the same time and
Yeah.
it's not. I'm like, I need to figure out which one I'm gonna ride.
And how many words or pages do you think you have roughly at this point?
On the newest draft, probably about 3,000.
Words or words?
Yes.
Okay. So this sounds like a short story at this point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, can you just see where it's going to go and not put the pressure on yourself to make it a book, but maybe make it a really interesting story? And could that be enough?
Okay. Yeah.
And if it just keeps going, maybe it becomes a book. But, stories get published all the time too. And do you want it to be published?
I don't know.
Well,
I think I do,
okay.
but I'm not sure because I also don't know the business side of it. And I'm like, I think when I get to the end of it, I'll know if I want it to be published.
Okay. So it sounds like it's a really fun exploration for you right now, right?
Yeah.
So that's cool, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I think that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Who else wants to share what came up for you or something you noticed in the writing?
I'd like to say something.
Yeah,
I was telling you that I wanted to do a blog.
yeah,
I think that I want to do that because I think that that would be something that I can use to write short.
okay,
I want to use the word vignette, maybe a little longer, but I
okay,
do have, you know, my intention is to help inspire uh, somebody else who may be
okay,
going through some of my own similar. I'm
okay,
great with metaphors. I like to take a metaphor and make it into something, a little short story or
okay.
something. And so I guess what came up to me is that I'm afraid nobody's going to want to read it. Nobody's going to want to like it or that doesn't like it.
So let me
And
ask you a couple of questions, Linda. First of all, worst case scenario, nobody likes it. How does that change your life?
I know, try it and find out, right?
I
Jump
mean,
in.
does it? Like, does it change your life? You know, like worst case scenario. Now, that's really unlikely to happen. Someone's going to like it and somebody won't, but someone's going to say, "Oh, thanks for writing that. I went through it too." Or that's really interesting, or I didn't know that about you, right? So does it have to be 2,000 people? What if it's 12 people? Is that enough?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Just something to think about, you know. I mean, listen, I'm greedy. I want everybody in the world to buy my books and love them and think they're fantastic. It's probably not going to happen. But I will say that when a dozen people like it, I'm happy. That's cool. Wow, 12
One,
people like my book, you know, like, cool.
one more real quick question I heard
Yeah.
you say to the last person. I'm sorry, I forgot her name.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you know, you could write short stories and that you can publish those as well.
Yeah.
Where do you do that?
So there are so many journals and magazines and outlets for the taking, which is not something we'll go into in this class, but I can tell you if you go to poetsandwriters.org, which is pw.org, you can look for literary journals. There's I forget where, but you could find like so many, and that's one of the places that I research when I'm looking to submit my pieces. And there are many others as well. There's so many outlets for,
pw.org.
yeah, pw.org is one place. But that's definitely fodder for another class, which I'm happy to talk about
Okay, I
later. But yeah,
understand.
sure. Who else wants to share how the writing went? Dana?
Yeah, thanks. Something you mentioned actually in one of your slides really spoke to me. And so one of the things that I'm afraid of is about that authenticity.
Yeah.
And well, my project that I've been working on for a while and I've gotten stuck in the research is a historical novel, but it's based on my actual ancestors and family members.
Okay.
So what I'm struggling with is, for example, you know, a character in my book, it's loosely autobiographical in some aspects, some absolutely not. So I've in my mind and visually I've assigned that character like my grandfather, right? And so even though it's a fictional character, because I'm also a very visual person, I'm using him as a model to describe and this sort of thing. And so I wrote down here, I'm worried that my fiction, you know, will be misunderstood because I'm using personal details based on what I know.
Okay.
So,
So what would be misunderstood about it?
oh,
Tell me.
that actions that this character took, that, you know, I'm putting that action, say if it was less than positive, on somebody in my family, you know,
Okay.
I'm just gleaning, and I'm new at this, you know, I've done tons of writing for work and marketing and that sort of thing, but in fact, you know, creative writing, I haven't done in a long time. So I guess, yeah, the question is, expressing something that's like difficult or painful or traumatic, and then using attributes from people I know, because that's my model for this particular character, not necessarily how they behave, but other things. And so it's the bottom line is that fear of using information that's intimate to a family, even though for fiction's sake.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling like I'm holding myself back.
And you might be, and that's very normal. People are afraid of being others being disappointed in them or offended or judging them in some way or getting mad or whatever. First of all, if you're writing historical fiction, you're writing fiction. And so everybody who writes fiction, there's something from their reality that influences their choices in the book, but it's fiction. So people always ask me if my first novel is about me, and I'm like, there are things I took as inspiration, but it's not about me, it's fiction. And if you're writing historical fiction, you probably are doing a fair amount of research into the time period and the place. And so it's an amalgamation of real inspiration, research, and imagination. And you're going to do it your best way. And there will be things you'll miss, and there will be things you'll do really well. And that's just true for every book. So I don't know if that is freeing in any way, but that's the reality, is that you get to decide how you're going to tweak and massage and make it better. And you'll put it out in the world sometime, and it'll be great at that moment. And then you'll become a better writer, and you'll look back and say, oh, I could have done it differently, because now you're better. Like Billy Joel always says he doesn't listen to his early songs because they make him cringe, because he's gotten so much better. But I listen to Billy Joel's early songs and think they're fantastic, right? And so I think all artists are like that, and we are artists if we're writers. So do the best story you can do at this moment, and that is enough. And it's all going to work out.
Awesome. Thank you.
If I can just say, Dana, one of my
actually, Linda, hold on, Linda, I want to go on to somebody else's question. So if you can wait for that. Thank you, Dana. Noel, you were waiting. What's your question?
Let's see if I can articulate this. So I know for sure I have messages from my parents to say, you're good, but you're not good enough.
Okay.
So one of my things is I've submitted to different places, and I've gotten sometimes notes that's, oh, this is good, but.
Yep.
And so one of my things is, if the literary world is small and everybody knows each other, then they're going to know who I am. And when I submit, they're going, oh, it's that guy again. Okay, never mind. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. I don't think the literary world is small. I think the literary world is vast. And I don't think, okay, writers by definition, there are exceptions to this, but most writers are introverts. And while we all have our own circles, they're pretty small circles. And so, even if you're at like one of the top literary journals, you may know a few other people at top literary journals, but that's it. So I don't think I think one of the best things about technology and where we are today is that we can connect like we are today from all different places, but it makes it feel like the world is very small when in fact it's really very big. And what we see on social media or in our, limited circles, we think is the totality of everything, and it's really not. So if you keep submitting to the same publications, then yeah, they may say, oh, it's that guy again. But honestly, if you're submitting, let's say you submit 2 or 3 times to one publication and they don't take any of your work, I would move on to a different publication after that, because they may be making other choices and they may not include your voice for whatever reason.
So they don't share notes with each other, right?
I do not think they do that. I do not. Yeah.
Okay, so that's one of my biggest things.
Okay, good. I hope that frees you. I really do.
Yeah, part of me.
Okay.
I'm working with therapists, so that's
yes. I understand. It's all good. That's great. Thank you. Anybody else want to share something that came up or that you noticed in the writing? Yes, Denise. Denise, there you go.
Yeah, I think my fear isn't so much in the writing or accomplishing the writing. I've actually recently started where I take one day a week and dedicate it to just sitting in front of the a laptop and writing. So
Awesome.
it's starting to work out pretty good. So my fear begins in the I'm not good enough part is in trying to uh, attract an agent or a publisher. I have self-published, and I have no fear about doing that. I've even given my books out to everybody who's willing to read them, and I get wonderful feedback.
Awesome.
I don't know if they're just being nice, and I just can't seem to get anywhere with finding someone a real person, I mean like an agent or someone that I can move forward with, to get from, yes, I have a book and I believe so much in it that I went ahead and printed it and here I am. And it's like, it's not enough.
Okay, let's look at a couple things there. First of all, why do you want an agent to pick up a book of yours?
I can't do the marketing. I want to write. I don't want to market.
Okay, so let's rephrase that. You don't want to do the marketing, but you can if you had to, but you don't want to. And I understand that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, marketing's not rocket science. It takes learning, but anyone can do it. But yes, I would much rather be spending all my time writing and have somebody else take care of the marketing. Let me let you in on a little secret. Even authors published by the biggest publishing houses in New York have to do their own marketing.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, let that sink in. Unless you're like Michelle Obama, who is a big name, and so they're going to do it all for her. You are going to do most of your marketing yourself, and that is a necessary part of being an author today.
Okay. All right. So it's just a matter of finding how to do that. Just a new
So
thing.
yes, so that's one thing. If you still want to go for an agent, it's totally valid. There are steps to the process. So there's what's called querying, where you write a query letter and you send, there's a whole protocol to get an agent to pay attention to you and want to take you on. And there's a whole process that you have to go through. And sometimes the problem is in the query letter. Maybe the query letter isn't written appropriately or is too long or isn't telling the right information. A great way to learn about that is to listen to the podcast, The Shit About Writing, The Shit No One Tells You About Writing. It's a podcast and it's phenomenal. It's two agents and an editor who's also an author. And they critique query letters all the time, and you learn a lot about what agents are looking for or not looking for in query letters. So when you're reaching out to get an agent, you have to query them. And if they're not responding, then there's a problem with the query letter. If they respond and they want to read the full manuscript and then they don't respond, there's a problem with the manuscript. And if all of those things happen and they still don't take you on, there could be a lot of reasons. It could be that they don't think they can sell your book, or they have other books like it, or there could be a lot of reasons. It may not be that it's not a good book.
Right.
And remember, agents only get paid if they sell your book. So they have to believe that they can, otherwise they're not going to make any money.
Well, true.
So there's a lot that goes into whether or not an agent will take you on, and most of it doesn't have to do with you.
Well, thank you.
Does that help? Yeah?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I need to do a little more work.
Yeah, and you know what? Marketing books is hard, and it's a constant. It's not just when you launch it, it's ongoing. I'm working on my 2025 offerings right now, and I think there's going to be a couple of seminars on how to market your books on an ongoing basis. So I'll keep you on the list and I can let you know, but there are skills that are good to have, even if it's not as fun as writing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Andre.
I'll try to be concise in that a couple of people have gone over this. So I was a cop in LA for 20 years, and I started writing this as like journaling. It'd be cathartic. But they're the kind of stories I've only shared with therapists and attorneys.
Okay.
And if it was just hurting someone's feelings, I wouldn't have any problem with that.
Okay.
But, it's more affecting careers and freedoms and whatnot. And then I thought, well, I'll just call it fiction. And that just seems inauthentic to do that. So,
Why?
That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Why do you think it's inauthentic to make it fiction?
Because if I wrote things that I know to be true, and then called it fiction.
Okay, so tell me, so I'm assuming you want to write stories based on things
My
that maybe
experience.
colleagues did or cases or that kind of thing, right? That you
Yeah,
experienced?
yeah, things I've experienced or seen or know of, and things like that.
Okay. So if you're writing a book, there has to be what's called a through line, which you probably know, which means that it starts somewhere and there's a transformation that gets you to somewhere else. And so along the way, like things happen and there are conflicts and then they're resolved. And at the end, it should feel satisfying, like we've come full circle or we've answered the questions or whatever it is. And so there you could be I mean, you'd want a premise of like if it's a day in the life of a cop or whatever, like that could work. But then there's got to be like a journey. So this character goes through some transformation or something. And you could always include real things, but I'm assuming along the way you'd probably add in little embellishments because it's fun, you know?
All right. Mhm.
And so the truth is, I don't think it's inauthentic. I think what I have found is that novelists write about things that did happen and then they make them bigger or develop them or take them in another direction. My novel that's coming out in August, it's funny, I spent the month of July in 2022 in the Scottish Highlands, and I was working on a book. I was trying to figure out, like, I'm Jewish and it's an important part of my identity, and I was looking for Jews in Scotland. There are not a lot of them, but there have been some. And so I was doing research and I found these three people from the 1800s that were interesting and they're widely written about. And I thought, okay, I'm going to write a historical novel about them because I didn't create them. They're out there. There's already been a lot written. And I reached out to their descendants who still have a castle somewhere in Scotland. And I said, hey, I'd love to come and visit the castle. I'd love to interview you. I want to write about your ancestors in fiction. And they said, we don't want our ancestors to be written about. And of course, I grumbled and thought, who are they? Blah, 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 blah. And then when I got over that, I asked my attorney, what do you think? And he said, they don't really have any recourse because they've already been written about, but they could make your life difficult. So why not change the names? And I
All right.
said, oh, is that nice? Whatever. So anyway, my book that's coming out, there are some characters in it that are based on those people, and they're totally different names, and it's a different story altogether, but that's the inspiration. So is that inauthentic? I mean, it was fun to actually turn it around, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah, hope it helps.
Yep.
Anybody else? Anybody? Yes, Ronnie?
Okay, I have a question. If I wanted to, excuse me, lost my voice there.
Okay.
If I wanted to write something that in many ways is really a memoir, but the people who were involved would not be very happy about me mentioning their names, which I certainly wouldn't do. How different does it have to be from reality so that no one retaliates?
Well, what are they going to do to retaliate? What are they going to do?
So,
Okay. If you look at the laws around slander and libel, they're very hard to prove. And I'm not a lawyer, but one of them is saying untrue things and another, whatever. You have to prove damages to your reputation or prove
okay.
that something isn't true. So it is difficult and it wouldn't be pleasant. So that's one thing. The other thing is a memoir is about a slice of your life. It's not about your whole life. It's about a finite period of time. And it's about you and your experiences, which are going to include other people, but it's really from your perspective. So I don't know if you've ever had the experience where you're with siblings or cousins or someone and you all were at a family event at some point and you're like, oh, remember when this happened? And they're like, it didn't happen like that. And like you all have different memories of it. You were all there, but you all have different memories of it. So which one is right? I mean, right? The
Right.
other thing too is that you can just change names or so I have a friend, her name is Jennifer Friedman Lang, Lang, and she wrote a really cool memoir. It's very short. It's a memoir in essays, short essays, and it's called Places We Left Behind. And her sibling doesn't want her to write about him, so she just says sibling. Now, everybody knows who her sibling is, but she never actually puts his name in there.
Okay.
And I don't think he's done anything, you know? It is also a choice. If it's going to cause a rift in a relationship that you value, you may not want to do it.
There's
If,
already a rift in the relationship.
then who cares, right? So I have there's a writer who's been in a bunch of my programs, and she got sober a year or two ago and was writing, I think it's her memoir about her getting sober. But there's a friend who didn't and who drinks to excess. And this woman has an issue with it because now she sees clearly because she no longer drinks.
Right.
And so she was really grappling with, well, if I do this in fiction, is she going to see herself in this? Right? So here's what I'll say to that. The people who were afraid of offending may never actually read what we write. And the people who are offended by what we write and can swear that they're in your writing may actually not be. You know, so for example, I wrote an essay about my dad. I lost him 4.5 years ago. We were very close, and I was writing about our relationship through food and how we shared adventurous palates. And there was a sentence when it came out that I was like, oh my gosh, my mom's going to be so offended. And so I tried to get the sentence changed and whatever, I didn't. But I tried so hard not to let my mom or anybody that's connected to her see it. So I promote all my writing all over social media. And I went through Facebook and I blocked every single person who's connected to my mom from that post. But I forgot one cousin. And my aunt called me and said, oh my gosh, Linda read, my cousin's name is Linda. Linda read the piece. Did you want her to see it? And I thought, oh my gosh, I spent a half hour trying to figure out who should not see this so that my mom wouldn't see it. And Linda wasn't going to tell her, but it was like, right? I was jumping through hoops. It was not pleasant. My mom called me and said, what a beautiful piece. But I was upset. I was upset. And I thought, here it comes. It's the sentence. Why didn't you write about me? It had nothing to do with that sentence. I don't even know if she saw that sentence. She was offended that it was about my dad and not about her. And I was like, I can't do anything about that. This story is about my dad. So my point is, the people who are going to be upset about what you write are not the ones you expect, and it's not your job to take care of their feelings.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, what I would like to do now, and we will have time for Q&A at the end, is I'd like to do this meditation, which I think is super important and powerful, and I hope you guys will give me a little bit of leeway to experience this. And then after we do this, we're going to have some writing time. I'm going to give you a writing prompt, and then we're going to come back together and have Q&A and see how the writing went, and if there's something you want to share, you can share it. So what I would like to ask you to do is to close your eyes and get comfortable, and I'm going to lead you through this guided meditation, and then we'll see where we go from there, and you will start writing at the end of it, okay? Okay. So hello and welcome, creatives, and thank you for joining me today and giving this a try. You might be getting ready to write or embark on a creative project, and I want to take a few moments to offer a meditation that is simple, quick, easy, and effective. If you're someone who's like, oh, meditation might not be for me, or it's never really resonated with you, it's your chance to just let go of all the thoughts or judgments that you might have about what meditation is and what it should offer you, and just let go. And be here now in this moment and see what a few moments of stillness can offer you. See how you might feel a little empowered or stronger as a writer on your creative journey at the end of this. I'm hoping that's the effect. So take a comfortable seated position. You can sit on the floor or in your chair, or if you want, you can even lie down. Whatever works for you. Just get comfortable. And wherever you are, lengthen your spine. Imagine a string extending from the top of your head in a straight line all the way down to the bottom of your feet. Now take a few cleansing breaths. Breathe in and then let everything go. Big exhale. Do that 2 or 3 more times. And then let your breathing get a little regulated. We're going to breathe in for 4 counts, hold a beat at the top, and then exhale for 4 counts. Do that 2 more times. In for 4, hold a beat at the top, out for 4. And after you've done that 2 or 3 times, just let your breathing get easy, and I'll take you on this journey. So often as creatives, our monkey minds are jumping from one thing to the next. We're thinking about the next chapter, the next story, the book we want to write, the piece we want to get published. Our minds are jumping all over the place, and it can be a little overwhelming. It can be helpful to take a few moments and a few cleansing breaths to overcome any creative blocks or frustrations we might be feeling. But just stopping here and now in this moment, giving ourselves permission to not think about any plans or hopes or goals. The truth is, you never have to think about the next chapter. Just the word in front of you. Just one sentence and then another. That's all that writing is. It's one word and then another and then another. And you love words. Do you remember that love of writing? Take your mind back to a time when you loved putting words together on the page. Where were you? How old were you? Was there anything riding on the writing? Anything that you had to produce? Or was there just joy in the act of writing? See if you can go back to that earlier version of you and sit beside that person. Can you step into that joy? You are blessed to be able to create characters and worlds and scenes, to take real life examples and turn them into interesting stories. That's a skill. That's a talent. So take another deep breath and feel the ground beneath you. Take note of what parts of your body are touching a surface. Feel the weight of your limbs, gravity pulling you down, keeping you safely planted and rooted. And then allow your mind to settle. The earth is holding you. You are safe. Nothing that happens when you write is bad. It's all from the heart and from the soul. So take a nice deep breath in. Fill your lungs with air, and then exhale fully. Let it all go. Creating this buffer of peace before your creative time is a helpful reset. You are clearing the canvas, readying yourself for the art and skill that reside deep inside you, letting them come to the surface. Whatever worries you brought with you no longer exist. They are in the past, and they are not important now. And whatever you need to do later is not here yet. It does not exist. You have this one moment, this precious time to write. Your creative potential comes from deep within you. Silence and stillness and space help to bring it out. So, what do you know to be true about your writing? Can you come up with a mantra or an affirmation that can hold you when you step into your writing practice? Maybe it's, I was meant to write, or I was born to write. Maybe it's as simple as, I can do this, or I am a writer, or one word and then another. Deep down in the core of who you are confident in your ability to tell a beautiful story, or you wouldn't be here. Your writing can change the world, can make it more beautiful. Your stories can touch people's lives. When we take a few moments like this before we write, we step into who we truly are at the creative source. Because at the core, we are creative beings. It is a blessing and an honor to be able to create something. You are about to engage in a beautiful gift. So take a moment to thank yourself for honoring your art and for showing up to write. Okay. Now I invite you to come back to this moment, and I'm going to put a writing prompt in the chat, and I'm going to give you about 20 minutes to write about it. You can use this to write about your own life, a real person, or you can use this and apply this to a character in a book you're writing. But see what comes from it and just write. So we're going to come back at 10:02, and then we'll go from there. Happy writing. Lori, I put the prompt in the chat again. 2 minutes left. Alrighty, let's come on back. So, how did that go? Whether it's the meditation or what you wrote or whatever you're thinking about it after all this, digesting it all. Who wants to share something?
Well, I'll share what a pleasure it was to write from that prompt.
Good.
And oh yeah, and how maybe it was meditation, I'm not sure, but how free and loose I felt with my thoughts and my ability to put things into words, and how good that felt.
I am so glad, Lori. That's great to hear.
Mhm.
Awesome. Who else? Lenore, did you want to share something?
No, I just, do you want, is this to be read to people? I mean, I don't know, or is this just to be discussed?
You can if you want, but I would just say, a minute or two, not any longer, just to be mindful of
Well, I
time.
don't, yeah, I don't know, I just, yeah, why not? It's
Okay.
just, it gives you a big picture of, I'm finding my words lately, so, and it's not a lot.
Okay, great.
14 months ago, I lost my best friend, my confidant, the one person who knew me 100%. When I am able to lean into all this and then come away feeling gratitude for ever having it in the first place, when I can capture the words and feelings of Spencer's presence in my life for that period of time, and put pen to paper, then that makes me feel like my best self.
That's lovely. That's great. I'm glad you're getting there, Lenore. That's awesome.
I just feel that's better than me trying to explain what's happening.
That's okay. No, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Mary Ellen.
Hi, yeah, I loved both the meditation and then the writing. And what I felt like was when I went to the writing and I was writing, I'm writing about, I'm doing a biography. So I chose to write about my character. And what it allowed me to do coming from the meditation was to tap into the emotional space of the person. And who I wrote about was the woman who became her partner, and the emotional, how that relationship worked emotionally, more so than, taking in facts, but really getting to that emotional depth. And then I'll just say also, as I was writing, I felt very free. I also then realized I need to flip it and say, emotionally, what is her partner getting from her? So it just having done the meditation just allowed me to go deeper, using the facts I know, but get into who they are. So I really appreciated it. And we're getting a recording of this, right?
Yes.
So
Yep.
we could do the meditation, right?
Again and again and again. Yep.
Yeah.
As long as you want. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? It's okay if it didn't work for you. I
There
want
we go.
Yeah.
I wanted, can you
Yeah.
hear me now?
Yes, Linda, yeah. Mhm.
I just wanted to say how good it felt to just sit down and have just 20 minutes to get something down on a piece of paper, which maybe would be a good thing for me to do. That's, you got 20 minutes to write something down and just do that and stay focused on it without laboring over the words and everything.
Yeah.
It allowed me to just empty my mind.
That is great. That is so great. It's funny. I find that what makes it hard for some writers to commit to writing regularly is I don't know about you, but I'll cancel on myself all the time. If I'm supposed to meet someone else, I'll be there. But if it's me, it's like, oh, I don't need to show up. I can do other things. Um, so accountability is really important, you guys, to getting us to really sit down and write. I offer an accountability cohort that is a weekly program that you're welcome to join. I have spots open. It's on Mondays. There's a fee for it. But like I said, London Writer Salon has it daily, 4 times a day. I said I'm a member of Women's Fiction Writers Association. There are 2 or 3 daily writers' dates where you can meet other writers and just write together online. So I'm already a member and I can do those any day. There's so many opportunities. So I think whatever's going to get you writing is important. And, also, I mean, you guys are investing in yourselves and your writing by being here. But I always say, if you write, you're a writer, period, end stop. Because a lot of people in my programs will say, well, can I really call myself a writer? And they have all these reasons why they don't think they can. Like, I've never been published, or I haven't finished the book I wanted to write, or whatever. And I say, if you write, you're a writer. Maybe you have to say it to yourself until you believe it. Fake it till you make it type of thing, Who else wants to share how it went for you, or maybe read something, or we can also open it to questions at this point. Anybody? Martina, yes.
So I liked all of it, the meditation, the writing prompt, and I approached today as a different kind of writer. I'm a screenwriter who wants to move to novel writing, but keeping the screenwriting.
Okay.
And it's always been, I want to bring the story out, but as a screenwriter, you need somebody to finance it, and that's a big problem.
Yeah.
And as a novel writer, worst case, you can self-publish. And I think you answered this in the chat to one of the questions. If you want the story to get out, if nobody wants to publish it, self-publish. And I thought that was really what I needed to hear today, because I have one story I really want to get out there. So if nobody wants to produce it, maybe I write the book and maybe they want to produce it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, listen, we can have the self-publishing conversation, but like when in the 80s and 90s, when I was establishing myself as a journalist, people didn't self-publish. It wasn't as easy as it is now. And I think, and that has definitely changed, but you still have to go through checks and balances. Like when I decided to start my own press and put my novels out my own way, I invested in a developmental editor. I invest in an editor who does the proofreading and copy editing and all of that. I have other readers. It's not just I wrote something, poof, it's out in the world. I think self-publishing can be empowering, and for some people, it's the best and only way to get something out there. And there are so many. I actually have an article. I'm going to find it while we're still here together. That so many self-published authors that ended up being super successful. Let me see. Here we go. This is the article. I'm going to send this to you guys. So yeah, I think that there's so many ways to get your work in the world, and if you believe in it, it's worth
I think
it.
at least you have the power as a novel writer, if you can finance the editing part, that's given.
Yeah.
But as a screenwriter, you have the editing and all this, and you still have to spend money, and then you still don't know where it's going.
Yes.
And I think getting this power back a little bit, that was good for me to hear today.
Good. I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
And with the writing prompts, since some of you said it really helped, I read the book The Artist Ways years ago, and I still do this every morning that I do the free writing, the pages. Kind of clears the brain and gets me ready to do my, let's call it actual writing.
Yes. Yep. That's awesome. That's great. Okay. Who else has a question or wants to share how it went for them? Thank you, Martina. Anybody? Dana? Yes.
Yeah, so I appreciated the prompt as well, because one of my major blocks, which I mentioned earlier, is that I go down rabbit holes of research, and I'm getting to the point where I don't need, I mean, yes, research always going to be needed, but I think it's an avoidance issue. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
sat here for like maybe 2 minutes just staring and thinking, and then it's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, this is a no risk situation. And so I really appreciated that opportunity to just like kind of be, paralyzed for a few seconds, but then it's like, okay, go. And then I always thought of myself, I'm actually a really good editor, and I've done a lot of that in my work. So I started to go back, oh, that would be better here. That would be better here. And it just started flowing, and it's probably just, awful, but the thoughts got. And so I just appreciate the exercise, because when you get the thoughts out, like you said, you go back and start tightening in this. And it's just that first step that just scares the heck out of me sometimes. And there's no reason. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, you're so welcome. Dana, what is the fear? So when you say it scares you, that first step, and maybe even just close your eyes when you answer this. What scares you? Tell me what scares you.
That I'm not supposed to be in this space doing this.
Okay, let's go into that. You're not supposed to be in the space doing this. Why?
Because, and I'm tracing back to my childhood and all these other things, but because what is its purpose? How is it functional? How is it contributing to the world? And I know that it will eventually, but there's this, this recording that, my family comes from very practical means, and, I had wanted to go into the arts, and it was like, that sort of thing. So it's just sort of ingrained in there that unless it becomes something that other people can put a value on,
Sure.
then it's not worth me doing. And I don't believe that in my head, but I believe sometimes in my,
Yep.
my.
So what do you think was behind that kind of a perspective from the people who gave it to you?
What you said in the beginning is safety, fear,
Security,
yeah,
concern, yeah, wanting to protect you, right?
and frivolous.
What?
Not being frivolous, like
Okay.
doing something more grounded.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's great. That is such important insight. So what I would invite you to consider is that they were looking out for you. That's really lovely, and it comes from a place of love. And so you can thank them for that, and then say, "I've got it now. I can handle it. So thank you for being there when I needed that, and now I have a stronger voice." And
Yeah.
just release them, you know?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Michaela.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. Dana, what you said made me think of something that I think where the self-doubt comes in for me a lot of the time is the wondering whether or not my skills and talents would be better spent doing something else. Like, just because I want to write and just because maybe I can, is that the best use of my time? Is it, and it ties back into what Dana was saying about security and stability. And, I can tell myself a lot of the time that the voices in my head of my parents and the people from my childhood and all of that were looking out for me, and thank you, and I've got it from here.
Yep.
But do I, when I come back to the question of, well, what, like, and it has to do with like, what is my purpose of why do I want to write?
Right.
And I'm not clear on that yet. And I think that will help shut down the questions of like, maybe is my time better spent doing something else? But I don't know if anybody else wrestles with that in the self-doubt realm.
So, Michaela, let's explore this if you don't mind. Is that okay to do?
That's fine.
So, when you say time better spent doing something else, what would that something else be, do you think?
I mean, in school I studied psychology and English writing. So I tend to think that writers are psychologists. And when you're creating characters, you're thinking about what's at the heart, at the core of someone, how are people interacting. So I think about being a psychologist and whether or not that's a better way of helping people, if that's what I want to do. And
Do you write to help people?
I think I write because I would like to help people, help form connections with people.
Okay. What's your earliest memory of writing?
I don't know. I really don't. I don't have a lot of vivid memories
Okay.
of like early childhood.
Okay. I mean, do you remember elementary school, middle school, high school?
Yeah. Actually, I do have one of my early memories of writing is learning how to spell. I had a teacher who made us do this assignment she called it rainbow words, where you take a color and write the word, and then you take another color and write the word again on top of it.
Okay.
And I just remember something about that activity.
And how did it feel?
Good.
Yeah, was it fun?
Pleasing, comfortable.
Comfortable, pleasing? Sounds like it was colorful, right?
Yeah.
What a pretty memory, just to have like words sort of creating a rainbow. I mean, whenever you see a rainbow in the sky, like everybody's like, oh, look at the rainbow, like it's just very exciting. Does it feel like that when you write?
No.
It doesn't feel pretty or exciting or anything?
Few and far between. It does, and it has, but I'm always chasing it.
So when you write, like, tell me a little bit about your writing, like when you sit down to do it. What do you write, and what are the thoughts in your head or the feelings like when you're doing it?
A lot of it's trying to tune out the background noise of the self-editor as I'm putting words on the page, because those are two different brains and you can't have them both on at the same time.
Right.
If you want to produce anything. I don't know. Normally writing feels a little bit torturous to me.
Okay. So then
But
why do it? Why do you do it?
Well, it's been a job. It's been how I've made my living for the past decade or so.
Okay.
I actually did just quit my job.
Okay. That's great.
Without another one lined up. So I'm sort of hoping to use the time that I would have spent at work developing a better relationship with writing, my personal writing practice.
Okay.
And I feel a little fearful of that, but also hopeful for the first time. So
I really want to commend you for taking a very courageous step.
Thank you.
And that shows a lot of confidence and self-worth. And so even if you haven't recognized that, like that's really great and that's inspiring. I hope some of this exploration was helpful, and we can always do more. It's funny when I pivoted from journalism to marketing, it was 2007, 2008, which was economically a terrible time. And a lot of my friends were being laid off or didn't have jobs. The housing market totally tanked. And I filed for divorce. My kids were 1, 3, and 5. And the house was so underwater. It was like crazy. And I started a marketing business. And I thought, what the heck am I doing? I'm an idiot. Like, oh my gosh. And I remember I sat down on the bottom step in the house one day and I said, okay, what am I afraid of? And I went through this whole thing. Like, what is the worst case scenario? So I said, okay, the worst case scenario is nobody hires me. I get no customers. I'm no income. Okay, what happens then? I don't lose the house that day. Probably 18 months before I lose the house. What happens if I lose the house? Well, my parents live in town, and at 37 years old, I think I was 36, 37, with 3 little kids, worst case scenario, I could move in with them. I didn't want that, but I had that safety net. So I realized, oh, I'm grateful for that. I will not be on the street. Okay, I don't want that outcome, but that's the worst. I can live with that. Now let's make it not happen. And I found that exercise was so grounding when I finally realized that the worst case scenario was not the absolute worst case scenario. Then I could do whatever it took to have a different outcome. And it was very successful, actually. But the voice in our head can really freeze us up. And I think that exercise can be helpful and empowering in any situation. What is the worst case scenario? And there's no better motivation than not wanting that outcome. And I remember my dad, who was my biggest business advisor, always said to me, do the work in front of you and you will always have work. And so whenever I would lose a client or fear I would lose a client or whatever, I would just knock the socks off the clients I had, So we can apply this, you guys, to writing as well. But I will also say, and then we'll go to you, Cheryl, Michaela, when you're writing for a living, it's a very different thing than when you're writing for the joy of it. And it's sometimes hard to do both simultaneously. So I understand how that can really take the fun out of it when it's because I've got to make a living at this, And so it'll be interesting to see what happens now that you've freed yourself from that. How does writing change for you? So I would love to hear if you feel like emailing me when you get into it. So
I will. Thank you.
yeah. Cheryl.
Yeah, so I've done different kinds of writing in the past, and I was the one that put in the chat early on, like that I'm thinking about writing a memoir, but that I'm afraid nobody will be interested in reading it.
Okay.
And I've never done this kind of writing. I've done a lot of academic writing and things like that. So I guess I'm technically published, but like nobody wants to read that unless you want to go to sleep, right? Like that's so, but just through the process of like listening to you and listening to other people in the class, what I realize is that my goal is actually self-exploration. And it's almost like a way of me coming to understand who I am as a person. And so I'm not actually sure that I want to write a memoir, but I want that experience, like that exploration. And then maybe a memoir will come out of it, or maybe it won't, but like it doesn't matter because it's more about the process of doing the writing. Like I'm learning about myself and my experience and, excavating that emotional cesspool of all the shit that's happened to me over my life. Like,
yeah.
Right. So it's more about that for me, I think. And at some point you asked us to maybe come up with a mantra or something.
Yeah.
And I found myself writing down, like, I have interesting things to say. And so if some of those things inspire someone or help other people that have been through some of the horrors that I've experienced, then that's enough. So I had no idea that's where this afternoon was going to go for me. And it's like completely different from what everybody else is talking about because publishing is the last thing on my mind. But I just thought I would share that because it was so different.
I'm so glad you did. I think that self-exploration is a great goal. And I think most writers in some way are doing that. And I think it's freeing to say, maybe I don't want to write a memoir. The truth is telling yourself you want to write a book. I think that's a huge project, you guys. Why write a book? If you want to write a book, absolutely. But, it's putting a lot of pressure on yourself. And to what end? Which is why I think it's so important to say, why do I want to do this? What are my goals? Because you might find out, like Cheryl, that you have a different goal. And that's fantastic to have that clarity. Yeah, that's awesome. Also, Cheryl, explore creative nonfiction or flash nonfiction, which are shorter pieces that are essays, could be your medium. Maybe that's what you want to write,
Who knows?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. You guys, I write because I love writing. Like I love the creative aspect of it and exploring things and figuring out what I think and believe. So I write, I would say, for those reasons for me, and I want to be published, and I want to inspire people and build connections and relationships. All of those things can be true. But I think it's important to know, why you're doing it, because you don't have to. So if you're going to do it, make it meaningful for you. Who else has a comment or a question about anything related to today or anything related to writing?
I have
Yes.
a comment and a question. I talk a lot, it looks like.
Linda, you just muted yourself.
Okay, I want to know, you have offered several things, you've thrown out several ways to connect with you to find what you do. How do we find those?
Okay.
Do you have a website or?
Yep. So I will put in the chat, my website it's easy. It's lynnegolodner.com. And I'm going to put the page that has all of my offerings on it. So that's in the chat. It's lynnegolodner.com/write-with-lynn /. There's a lot of options there. The write-alongs, which are the first option on the Write with Lynn page, are the free monthly writing and community. We have one on July 7th and 2 in August, none in September this year because I'm leading a writer's retreat on Mackinac Island. There's other programs there as well. I teach additional classes on writingworkshops.com, and you could just Google, or you could just put in the search there, Lynne Golodner, and see what classes I have that are coming up. There's one I think that starts July 30th called Planning Your Novel. And then I'll have some in the fall because I lead writing retreats, which you'll find on the Write with Lynn page. So there's one every year with writingworkshops.com. It's on Mackinac Island, which is in Lake Huron between the two peninsulas in Michigan. That's every September. And then I usually do another one somewhere else. And so this year, the second one is in October in the Redwoods of Humboldt County, California. There is still a spot open if that's something you want. And I would be happy to give you the early bird tuition to make it more affordable. So if that's of interest, let me know. And I mean, next weekend I'm leading a retreat in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but that one's full. So the literary salon that is going to be at my house on the evening of July 7th, just email me and I'll put my email in the chat if you would like to attend.
Did you put that information, that contact information in the chat yet?
I just did. And also when I emailed you guys with an introduction saying, hey, our webinar is this Sunday, you have my email, so you could just reply to that if you want to. And I'm trying to think what else. That might be it for now.
I don't see that on my chat.
And it's there.
So if I just do chat, maybe it'll come up, or?
It should, yeah, if you open the chat box. But my email is Lynn with an E at yourppl.com, yourppl.com. So other questions or comments or anything else that I can do for you while we're still here together today? Anybody? Nobody? Going once, going twice?
How long did it take you to get published?
Well, I did an MFA, Master of Fine Arts in Writing, in my 20s, and it was in poetry, actually. And so our master's thesis was a manuscript of poems that should be ready to be published. And I submitted it to publishers when I was still in grad school, and a small press accepted it and published the book in time for me to go to graduation with a box of books. So I was very lucky. My first book came out when I was 25, and I had set a goal of 30 for my first book. So I said, oh, okay, I have to set a new goal. And I also wrote articles in high school for like the local newspaper in my town. In college, I was at University of Michigan. I wrote for the Michigan Daily, but also for the Ann Arbor News. And I worked as a journalist in my 20s. So I was being published in magazines and newspapers. But my books were all different projects that I, up until my novels, that I would pitch to publishers. And I just did my research on I didn't even think about going with an agent back then. I just looked for publishers that would be a fit for whatever the book was. And I was fortunate. I found publishers. So I have 6 nonfiction books and 2 poetry collections that were published between 1996 and 2013. And then my novels, I decided not to query and not to go traditionally for a lot of reasons. I didn't want to jump through hoops to make other people money. I write emotional novels with compelling Jewish characters that a lot of people are interested in, not just Jewish people, but I didn't want to have to water down the Jewish to get them in the world. And I just like every step of the process. And then I make more money when I publish it myself too. So that's kind of fun. So I don't know if that answers the question, but Sheila, I think I've been really tenacious and just kept pitching until I got something. If it makes you feel any better, my senior year of college, when I was trying to get a job at a newspaper or magazine, I sent out, and this is in the 90s, so it was not over email. I sent out like packets of cover letter, resume, clips of my articles. I think I sent it out to 100 different publications. I think I got 97 rejections and 3 interviews. And the job that I got in New York City was at a trade newspaper writing about metals and mining. Wasn't really what I had in mind, but I took it and it was fun and it launched my career. So you know, it wasn't my dream. Like I wanted to be hired at like People magazine and I wasn't, you know, but I still was happy with what I did. Anybody else? Any last questions? Dana, do you have a question?
I do. I was just looking at some of these writing retreats, and I know to apply, submissions of work is required. So if we don't have, let's see, if it haven't been published, or would those be samples like a couple chapters out of a manuscript, an
I mean, it
essay?
could be, yeah, it could be an essay, a poem. I mean, but what I would say is email me and let's have a conversation. And even if you're very new, it might still be a good fit. I just want to make sure I have the right people on the retreats.
For sure. Yeah. And I was looking like at 2025. So awesome. I'll email you.
Yeah, 2025. It's funny. I don't have the other big retreat decided yet. I'm working on it right now because I have a couple places I'm thinking of. There will always be Mackinac, but then I'll have some other ones as well. So yeah. Okay. Sure. Anybody else? Other questions? Anybody? Okay. Well, what I will do is I will be putting this recording on my YouTube channel, but unlisted, so only people with a link will be able to find it. So I will be sending that out to you guys. It'll either be tonight or tomorrow morning. And you can always reach out to me if you have a question. But what I hope for you is that you leave here feeling a little stronger about yourself as a writer. And just know that whatever your path is, that's how it's meant to be. I mean, you absolutely have the right to write. You have every chance at success in the world. And really think about, well, why not you? Why shouldn't it happen for you? The best thing you can do is surround yourself with people who are going to believe in what you do and build you up and understand your voice and your goals and help you get there. And if there are people around you who aren't doing that, then maybe they shouldn't be around you anymore. So I'm happy to be one of those. And there may be others here that you found. And yeah, I go forth and write, and I will celebrate you every step of the way. Okay. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye.